When you sit before me tonight, you may feel the tension of the world pressing upon your chest, the invisible war of dominance that humankind plays without even knowing it. In every office, in every household, in every arena of politics and relationships, this hidden current flows. People imagine that dominance belongs to the loud, the aggressive, the one who speaks most forcefully, yet the mystery reveals itself differently. It is the calm one who truly prevails. This truth is not a trick of manners, but a revelation of the psyche. For calm is not passivity. Calm is not surrender, it is mastery of the inner storm. And when the inner storm is mastered, no outer storm can dislodge you. Dominance, as we see it in the human animal, springs from deep roots in the unconscious. It belongs to the instinctive layers of the psyche, to the archetypes of power, to the primordial dance of survival. In the animal kingdom, dominance is established through display, through fight, through the contest of strength. But in the human kingdom, this drama is lifted into the theater of the spirit, where symbols rule and where the invisible exerts more influence than the visible. What you call dominance among men is not only a matter of muscle or of voice, but of aura, of psychic presence, of the archetypal forces that move behind the mask of the individual. The calm person embodies a paradox. Outwardly, they seem non-threatening, almost passive, their movements measured, their gaze unhurried. Yet, inwardly, the calm one rests upon the ground of the self, the central archetype that unites opposites. The image of wholeness hidden in the deep unconscious. The calm radiates from a place of integration where shadow and persona are no longer at war. And when such a person enters the social field, the collective unconscious recognizes something immovable, something ancient, something beyond ordinary fear. The crowd senses this and yields, though they may not understand why. I once observed in a dream of a patient an image that spoke precisely of this mystery. He saw himself standing in a crowded hall where men shouted and argued, each insisting on his rightness, but in the corner sat a solitary figure, a man dressed in plain robes, who said nothing. The noise grew unbearable until the dreamer turned toward this quiet man, and in the silence of his gaze, the entire hall grew still. No command was given, no voice raised, yet all recognized the presence of something greater. This dream was not about an external figure. It was about the archetype of calm dominance arising in the psyche of the dreamer. And such is the truth in waking life. The calm win not because they fight harder, but because they need not fight at all. They embody the archetype of authority without resorting to force. Why is this so? Because calm is the fruit of inner reconciliation. The aggressive man, though outwardly strong, is inwardly at war with himself. His dominance is compensation for his fear, his shouting a mask for his insecurity. The psyche betrays him, for the more he shouts, the more the unconscious whispers his weakness. But the calm man has already confronted his weakness. He has entered the cave of his own fear and faced the dragon of his own shadow. Having emerged, he no longer projects this dragon upon the world. He does not need to conquer others to prove his strength, for he has conquered himself. And thus, when he stands in silence, he stands as one who has returned from the underworld. People feel this unconsciously and submit to it. You may wonder, is this not submission to illusion, to the power of appearance? Yet it is not illusion but symbol. The psyche reads symbols more readily than words. Calmness is a symbol of mastery, a sign that the self has spoken. Think of Christ before Pilate, silent in the face of accusation. Think of the sage who does not argue, but simply is in such presence. All rhetoric collapses. The calm do not merely win, they transform the battlefield into something else entirely. They shift the contest from the plane of noise to the plane of being, and there no one can rival them. But you must understand, calm is not born of repression. Many attempt to appear calm while boiling within. This is but another mask, another persona. True calm arises only when the unconscious has been faced, when the energies of aggression, fear, desire, and rage have been acknowledged, integrated, and given their place in the soul's order. The one who pretends calm while avoiding shadow will soon be unmasked, for the unconscious will break through in sudden explosions, but the one who has walked with his shadow and befriended it radiates calm like the still surface of a deep lake. One looks into such eyes and sees not emptiness, but depth. And this depth is what commands. There is an alchemy here. The fire of aggression, instead of being expelled outward, is transmuted inwardly into presence. Presence is condensed energy, an aura shaped by integration. This is why the calm one unsettles the anxious. His very being exposes their fragmentation. The calm man does not argue because he does not need to. His silence speaks from a depth where words lose meaning. He is like a mountain that need not move to prove its existence. And all who stand before him feel their own smallness, not because he asserts it, but because he reveals it. In our modern world, we misunderstand dominance. We equate it with power over others, with status, with the ability to impose will. But true dominance, from the Jungian perspective, is power with the self, alignment with the archetypal center. It is dominion over the inner chaos, not over one's neighbor. And the paradox remains, the more one dominates oneself, the less one needs to dominate others. The calm win because they no longer play the game of dominance in its childish form. They move the game to another plane where the only opponent is oneself. And having faced this opponent, they stand victorious before the world. Imagine for a moment that you are in such a state. You enter a room, and instead of scanning for threats, instead of competing for space, you simply breathe. You do not shrink. You do not puff up. You simply are. Others sense it instantly, The unconscious of the group recognizes that you are anchored in something deeper than the collective storm, and without knowing why, they yield you space. They give you attention. They feel your dominance. This is the secret. Calmness is not weakness. Calmness is a field of gravity, and gravity always wins. The dream world confirms this again and again. Patients report dreams of standing before lions, before floods, before chaos, and discovering that by standing still, by not fleeing, they awaken a hidden strength. These dreams are rehearsals of psychic truth. When the conscious ego ceases to thrash in panic, the deeper self rises, and in its rising, all outer threats dissolve. This is not metaphor alone. It is the psyche's symbolic language, instructing us in the hidden psychology of dominance. And so I say to you, do not be deceived by the noise of the world. The calm prevail because they live in alignment with an archetype more ancient than the struggle for survival. They live in the rhythm of the self, and thus they need not prove themselves by aggression. The world senses this unconsciously and bows before it. If you would enter this mystery, you must confront your own shadow, not repress it, not disguise it, but integrate it. Only then will your calm be more than appearance. It will be the radiance of wholeness itself. You must realize that calmness is not merely a personal trait, but an archetypal pattern that belongs to the deep structures of the psyche. To understand why the calm always win, we must descend beneath the surface of personality, into the underworld of symbols, into that dark soil where dominance, fear, and authority intertwine like roots unseen. Human beings carry within them the ancient inheritance of the tribe, where survival depended upon reading subtle cues of strength and weakness. Even now, though we clothe ourselves in civilization, though we speak of equality and reason, the body and the unconscious still respond to these archaic signals. And one of the most powerful signals is calmness. Calmness announces to the collective unconscious, here is one who is not afraid of death. That, my friends, is the deepest message for all human aggression, all posturing, all battles for dominance are at their core attempts to master the terror of death. The man who shouts is the man who trembles inside, who fears his own annihilation. The calm man, however, radiates a different energy. His stillness says, I have already met death, and it no longer terrifies me. The unconscious of those around him hears this message and cannot help but submit, for it recognizes a truth older than reason. To stand before one who is not afraid of death is to stand before a power greater than survival itself. This is why spiritual figures throughout history often seem paradoxically dominant despite their humility. Think of the Buddha beneath the Bodhi tree, unmoved by Mara's temptations, serenely anchored, while armies of demons fail to dislodge him. This is not passivity. It is supreme dominance, for no force could shake his being. Think of Socrates, calmly drinking the hemlock, his composure unsettling, even his executioners. Think of those who walk into the arena of suffering with an unshaken gaze. They win not by defeating the enemy, but by transcending the battlefield altogether. Their calmness is not escape. It is alignment with an archetype that makes all worldly power seem trivial. In the depths of analysis, I have often encountered patients who dream of being hunted, pursued by wild beasts or shadowy figures. Invariably, when they run, the beasts grow more terrifying. But when they turn and face the pursuer, when they cease to flee, the dream changes. The beast may dissolve or transform or bow. This is a psychic law. What we fear dominates us until we cease to fear it. Calmness in the dream is the key to transformation. Calmness in life is the same. The calm one stops running, stops compensating, stops projecting, and in that stillness, the shadow loses its teeth. The hidden psychology of dominance then is not that the calm one has more strength, but that he has ceased to give his energy away. Aggression bleeds energy outward. Calmness condenses energy inward. The loud one spends himself to create the illusion of power. The calm one contains himself, and this containment radiates an invisible gravity. Others feel it in their bodies, a tightening of the chest, a hush of the voice, a sudden awareness of their own restlessness. They yield not because they choose to, but because the unconscious recognizes an ancient law of gravity. Energy flows toward wholeness. But beware of imitation. False calm is dangerous. I have seen it many times. The persona of serenity, the mask of composure, while the unconscious writhes beneath. This calm is brittle, and when the unconscious finally erupts, it does so with violence. Authentic calm requires confrontation with the shadow. It requires that you descend into your anger, your envy, your despair, your lust for power, and look them in the eye. Only then can calm emerge as the fruit of integration, not as the mask of repression. The repressed man may seem calm until the moment he explodes. The integrated man remains calm even when the world collapses. I tell you, the calm always win because they have already lost within themselves. They have lost the illusion that life can be controlled, lost the fantasy of being invulnerable, lost the need to prove their worth, and in this losing, they have won a greater victory. They stand before you as men and women who have been defeated by their own unconscious, and yet live. This is why their calmness unsettles you. It is the calmness of one who has walked through death, through shadow, through chaos, and returned whole. What can you do to such a one? You cannot intimidate him, for he has already faced terror. You cannot seduce him, for he has already seen illusion. You cannot dominate him, for he no longer plays that game. Thus he dominates by ceasing to dominate. He wins by refusing to fight. I recall a dream of a young woman who came to me troubled by her relationships. She dreamed of being in a storm. lightning striking around her, wind tearing at her clothes. She ran in terror, seeking shelter, but found none. At last, exhausted, she sank to her knees and closed her eyes. The storm continued, but suddenly she realized she was unharmed. The lightning struck, the wind howled, but she was untouched. She awoke with a strange peace. I told her, the dream teaches you the hidden psychology of calm. When you cease to flee, the storm loses its power. Dominance belongs not to the storm, but to the one who can be still within it. The calm ones are not without fire. Rather, their fire is hidden in the depths, transmuted into light rather than noise. This is why others follow them without being commanded. Their calm presence awakens something forgotten in the collective unconscious, the memory of the self, that archetypal image of wholeness which lies beyond conflict. When such a person stands among us, our souls remember that we too belong to wholeness, and for a moment, the war of egos grows still. This is not manipulation, it is the psyche recognizing itself in another. The calm always win, because they awaken the self in those around them, and the self cannot be resisted. So I say to you, if you seek true dominance, do not chase power. Do not perfect your arguments. Do not inflate your persona. Instead, descend. Enter the silence of your own shadow. Confront the beasts that chase you in dreams. Embrace the weakness you fear to reveal. Out of this descent will arise a calmness, not of your making, but of the self's. And when it arises, you will find that you no longer need to win, yet somehow you always do. What you may not yet see is that calmness is itself an archetypal mask through which the self gazes into the world. It is not simply an emotion, not merely a mood, but a symbolic posture that declares, I have integrated my opposites. To be calm is to have reconciled the warrior and the child, the tyrant and the victim, the shadow and the light. Calmness is the visible expression of invisible wholeness. That is why others sense it instantly. It speaks the language of the collective unconscious, which always knows when a symbol of integration has stepped into the field. The aggressive one shouts because he is identified with only one side of the polarity. He has not reconciled with his inner victim, and so he projects victimhood outward and becomes the tyrant to avoid feeling weak. But the calm one has faced the victim within, has embraced his vulnerability, and therefore has no need to oppress another. This is why his dominance is unforced. It emerges not from a compulsion to deny weakness, but from the acceptance of it. The calm win because they are whole, while the restless lose because they are divided. Let us look deeper into this paradox through the lens of dreams. A man once told me of recurring dreams in which he fought endlessly against intruders who broke into his house. He armed himself with knives, with guns, with endless defenses. Yet the attackers kept coming. At last, after months of analysis, he dreamed again of the same scene, But this time, when the intruders entered, he put down his weapon and sat in silence. The intruders froze, looked at him, and vanished. When he awoke, he felt a peace he had never known. What happened? He stopped resisting his own shadow. He discovered that true dominance is not achieved through ceaseless defense, but through calm surrender to the wholeness of the psyche. When you stop resisting, the shadow loses its power to invade. Calmness is the doorway through which the self enters. Consider how this applies in the collective. In groups, the loudest often appear to lead, but over time, the group begins to lean toward the one who is calm. Why? Because calmness assures the unconscious that chaos will not consume the whole. In moments of crisis, the group instinctively turns to the calm figure, not because of authority bestowed by title, but because of authority bestowed by archetype. The calm one embodies the king archetype in its mature form, not the tyrant king who controls by fear, but the benevolent king whose mere presence creates order. This is why the calm always win, because they become vessels of an archetype the group longs for, even if unconsciously. But there is another layer to this hidden psychology. Calmness is not only about what is present, it is about what is absent. When you encounter the calm, you feel a strange absence of anxiety, of striving, of the ceaseless need to prove. This absence unsettles you, for it reflects your own restless striving back at you. You realize, perhaps unconsciously, here is someone who is not enslaved to the same compulsions as I am, and in that realization, you feel both admiration and envy. The calm one does not have to demand dominance. The collective grants it to him precisely because he is free from the compulsions that bind the rest. This is why true calmness cannot be faked. The unconscious of the group is not deceived by performance. A man who pretends calm while his inner world rages will betray himself in subtle cues in his breathing, in the tension of his muscles, in the darting of his eyes. Others will feel it, even if they cannot name it, and they will not trust him. But the one who has truly faced his darkness radiates a different stillness, a stillness that cannot be counterfeited because it is not constructed by the ego. It is bestowed by the self after the long work of integration. You might now ask, how does one cultivate this calmness? The answer lies not in techniques or superficial practices. Though meditation and silence may help prepare the soil, the true cultivation lies in courage, the courage to face what you most fear in yourself. Calmness grows out of shadow work. It grows when you cease to flee from your anger and instead converse with it. When you cease to deny your envy and instead integrate it. When you stop projecting your aggression and instead acknowledge it as your own. Slowly, through this work, you begin to feel less threatened by the inner world. And as the inner threat diminishes, so does the outer. Calmness emerges naturally, like the dawn after a long night. And here lies the hidden psychology of dominance. Dominance belongs to the one who is least enslaved by fear. Fear compels us to control, to manipulate, to assert. But when fear is faced, when fear is transfigured, one no longer needs to assert. One simply is, and in the presence of such being, others bow, not out of submission, but out of recognition. They recognize in the calm one a mirror of their own possibility, a glimpse of the wholeness that awaits them. They feel both threatened and drawn, both unsettled and comforted. This tension is the mark of true archetypal power. I remember walking once in the Alps, where the mountains rise in still majesty. They do not move, they do not speak, yet they command the landscape. The villages live in their shadow, the weather bends to their slopes. All life organizes itself around their immovable presence. So it is with a calm person. He is like a mountain in the psychic field. The noise of others is like the wind that howls and passes, but the mountain remains. One does not defeat the mountain. One orients oneself around it. This is the essence of why the calm always win. They are the immovable axis around which the restless must turn. But take heed, to become such a mountain is not to escape humanity. The mountain has endured storms, has been shaped by fire, has known erosion and collapse. Its calmness is not the calmness of untouched innocence, but the calmness of survival, of endurance, of transformation through ages. So too must your calmness be born of fire. Do not imagine that calmness comes by fleeing from life. It comes by enduring it fully, by allowing the fire of suffering to shape you, by standing through the storms until at last you realize that you are still here. And in that realization, calmness becomes your nature. The calm always win, not because they have avoided life's storms, but because they have survived them. Their survival is not the clinging survival of the fearful ego, but the deep survival of the self that knows, even in death, I remain. This is the secret others sense in them, that their calmness comes not from denial, but from deep contact with the eternal. To stand near such a one is to feel eternity pressing against your fragile ego. And the ego cannot help but yield. And now we arrive at the final veil of this mystery, where dominance reveals itself not as conquest, but as presence. Presence, in the deepest sense, is the radiance of the integrated psyche. It is not that the calm one has silenced his instincts, but that he has woven them into a single tapestry where nothing fights against itself. To stand before such a one is to feel the weight of centuries, the gravity of archetypes, the pull of something that is both profoundly human and more than human. This is why calmness prevails. It is not a tactic, but a revelation of being. Look at the way children, even animals, respond to calm. The restless horse bucks under the anxious rider, but softens beneath the one whose heart is steady. The child in chaos clings to the adult whose voice is even, whose breath is unhurried. These are not coincidences. They are demonstrations of a law older than reason. Calmness signals to the unconscious. Here is safety. Here is order. Here is life's axis. It disarms the aggression of others, not by opposing it, but by revealing its futility. Aggression breaks itself upon calm as waves break themselves upon the shore. And yet, this calm is not sterile. It is alive, vibrant, with hidden fire. Imagine the deep ocean, on the surface, still and reflective, but in its depth, currents move with unimaginable power. The calm person is such an ocean. The fire of their instincts has not been extinguished, but has sunk to depths where it is transformed into energy that nourishes presence. Outwardly, they are quiet. Inwardly, they are a storm reconciled. This is why they seem untouchable, for you sense there is no crack in which your attack can lodge, no emptiness you can exploit. Their wholeness is their shield. You may think of calmness as passivity, but the calm are not passive. They choose their battles differently. They do not react to every slight, every provocation, because they are not ruled by the ego's fragile defenses. But when the true moment arrives, their action is decisive, precise, and devastating in its impact, because they have not wasted their energy in noise. They strike with the concentrated force of the self. In this way, calmness hides power until the moment it must be revealed, and when it is, the revelation is overwhelming. The calm always win because they do not scatter themselves. They are whole, and wholeness always prevails over fragmentation. But I must speak of the cost, for nothing of value comes cheaply. Calmness of this archetypal kind does not arise from comfort, from avoidance, from sheltered living. It is born through suffering. It is born through nights of despair when you sit alone with your demons, through seasons of betrayal, when you learn to endure without lashing back, through journeys into the shadow where every illusion is stripped away. To become calm is to be broken and yet remain. It is to face the terror of your own insignificance and still discover within it the spark of the eternal. Calmness is a crown, but it is forged in fire. There is a paradox here. Those who most desire dominance will never attain this kind of calmness, for their desire betrays their fear. They seek to control others because they cannot control themselves. They seek to win every argument because silence terrifies them. They cannot be still because in stillness their demons approach, and so they remain forever restless, forever loud, forever at war. But the one who relinquishes the need to dominate, who accepts loss, who embraces silence, he becomes the vessel of true dominance. He no longer chases it, and so it comes to him unbidden. This is the great irony. To win, you must cease to need victory. I once counseled a man who was tormented by the fear of being humiliated. He saw dominance in every interaction, needing to prove himself cleverer, stronger, more successful. Yet in dreams, he constantly saw himself naked in public, exposed, ashamed. Over months of analysis, he came to face this image, to accept his nakedness as a symbol of truth, of being seen without defenses. Slowly, he stopped fighting humiliation, And as he did, a strange calmness settled upon him. He no longer needed to prove himself, and as this calmness grew, he noticed that others began to respect him more, to listen more attentively, to follow his lead without resistance. By accepting his weakness, he had found strength. By ceasing to dominate, he had begun to embody dominance. His calmness was the fruit of shadow integration. You see, the psyche operates by paradox. The one who runs from fear is dominated by it. The one who faces fear becomes free. The one who clings to power loses it. The one who releases power radiates it. This is the mystery at the heart of the hidden psychology of dominance. The calm always win because they are not playing the ego's game. They have surrendered to something larger, and this surrender has crowned them with an authority. No force can challenge, and so I say to you, if you long for this calmness, do not seek it in appearances. Do not pretend serenity. Do not polish your persona with the mask of control. Instead, descend into the raw depths of your soul. Confront the shadow you fear. Sit in silence until the voices within you grow loud, and then stay longer until they grow quiet again. Allow yourself to be broken, for only through breaking can the deeper wholeness emerge. And when it emerges, you will discover that calmness has become your nature, and with it, an authority that requires no argument. The calm always win because they embody the self, and the self is the axis around which the ego turns. The calm do not impose, they reveal. They do not command, they are obeyed. They do not conquer, they transform. To be calm is to live as a symbol of eternity in the midst of time. And nothing in time can overcome eternity. Perhaps now you understand, calmness is not the absence of storm, but the mastery of it. It is not emptiness, but fullness. It is not weakness, but the most profound strength. And this strength is hidden, subtle, invisible, until the moment it is revealed, and then it stands undeniable. The calm always win, because they have already won within